My head explodes when people tell me they want to pursue their passion. Kids these days look at the deal that's being offered to them and they think, why would I chase achievement when achievement just brings you anxiety?
Can you define the difference between a virtue and a value so we could try to help people take action immediately following this podcast?
Values are the deeply held beliefs and motivations that galvanize your actions and decisions.
How does this work?
So we do a lot of testing as part of the methodology to figure out what your cognitive aptitudes are so you can build a career that leans into what you're already good at. A lot of people get onto a conveyor belt of what they're going to do with their career. How much you know about how big and wide and deep the world is, the more you give yourself opportunity. But I've never met a leader who was doing it for the money. No matter what story we're telling ourselves, we always tell it with ourselves as the hero. It's better to be the author of your life than the editor. But you got to put the pen in your hand and write that story.
Suzy, it is awesome to have you here on the Learning Leader Show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
To start, I want to know, what can we learn from the drummer of the band Disturbed when he was playing a cover of Simon and Garfunkel's song, The Sound of Silence?
Yeah, no one ever expects that at a business school class. When I throw that video up of Disturbed, they're like, first of all, isn't Professor Welch old? What is she doing listening to a heavy metal band? But anyway, what's happening in that clip, and the reason why I show it, that's a great video. They're doing a cover, Disturbed is doing a cover of Sound of Silence. And there's a moment where you can see the drummer almost levitate. He is so into the music. He's so into the moment. He's so into the crowd cheering and the almost sort of sacredness of this experience that it appears his feet lift up off the ground. And what I use that video for is to say, look, this life is available to you. This is what it looks like to be in your area of transcendence, as I call it. This is what it looks to be living your purpose. That guy's living his purpose. He is doing what he was born to do. And that feels exquisitely alive. And my whole life's work, my purpose is to help people find that purpose for themselves. I'm kind of like a purpose doula. My job is to get you to be the drummer in Disturbed, so to speak. Someday, my dream is to someday have the drummer in Disturbed come speak to my students, but I've written them and as of yet have no response.
Well,
I don't think they're going to answer.
I love this, Suzy, and I think it's great. With that said, I'm an optimist. I love being around optimists. I would love being around like just your vibe and your energy has been awesome from before we recorded until through now already. But one of the things is everybody wants to be a drummer. Everybody wants to be a rock star. Everybody wants to be like those types of gigs, but that's not.
No way.
But that's not reality. It's not reality for everybody though. So like, if we got more, go ahead.
That guy's good at drumming. Yeah. I mean, you're right. Everybody wants to be the drummer in Disturbed, but like, I want to be Celine Dion and my voice is so bad that when I'm singing at church, people ask me to stop. And that's the nicest place you could be singing. And people literally say, Suzy, we can hear you. If you could, please pipe down. And so like my whole methodology is about realism. And you got to know what your values are and you got to know what your interests are, but you better be good at it or forget it. Otherwise, it's a hobby. And so that guy is not a hobbyist as a drummer because he's great at it. And so you're right. I'm not telling people to go be drummers at all. I have 4 children, so I'm not telling them to go be drummers. I'm telling them excavate 3 data sets, your values, your aptitudes, and your economically viable interests. And those 2 words, economically viable, are very important. That guy can be the drummer in Disturbed because he can get paid for it. So I'm your ultimate realist here. I'm not woo-woo, and my head explodes when people tell me they want to pursue their passion. I mean, I have to hold it together and say, yeah, are you good at it? Because otherwise, that's for the weekends.
I got you. Okay. So can I pose a question that you pose to others? And I want this to be about you specifically. We're going to get into the work. Those 3 things you just talked about, we're going to go deep on those things in a second. But I want to start with you, Suzy, because I'm fascinated by your story, and there's some parts about it that I just want to pull the thread on a little bit. Okay. So there's this quote from a great poet in your book named Mary Oliver. And she says, quote, "Tell me what it is you plan to do with your one wild and precious life." Suzy, how about you? What is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Well, I'm lucky because I'm doing it, Ryan.
Hmm.
I am doing it at last. That's why I am such an apostle for it because I am levitating. So what I plan to do with my one wild and precious life is to help people discover their purpose because I think when you find your purpose, you have a new level of peace. And I think we're at a stage in the evolution of humanity where each and every one of us needs to be waging peace because so many other people are waging war. So, as individuals, if we can wage peace by being at peace with ourselves and what we're doing in our lives, we can take that angst out of, am I doing the wrong thing? This is a B plus life. This is not the A life I want. If we can do that, then I think this is the way I want to contribute. That's what I want to do right now with my life. That's what I can do, and that's what I've been told I'm okay at doing. So I hope I'm on the right track.
Well, I loved reading about how this became a class at NYU and how you
Mm,
made this happen. Can you
mm.
can you tell me that story? Like, how did this
Yeah.
becoming you become a thing at such a prestigious university?
Well, no one was more surprised than me. Let me preface it that way. I was coming out of a really terrible period in my life. I'd had a successful career. I was a best-selling author at both the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. I'd been a broadcast journalist of some note, and I guess, and I'd had a really successful beginning of life. I'd written for Oprah and all sorts of other things. And then life happens. There's just nothing we can do about that. And my husband got very, very sick, and I stopped everything to take care of him. The euphemism is, you run out of options. The doctors say we are out of options. That happened to us. And I stopped everything. I went to NBC and I said, I need a sabbatical. They said, we'll see you on the other side. And I went home to take care of him. And he died March 1st, 2020. And my plan was to grieve. Even when you know it's coming, nothing prepares you. And I was running a small company at the time, a music startup with my son and grandson. We're running it together, and COVID hit, and it was kind of a double whammy. I lost Jack, then the world fell up, kind of collapsed upon itself. And I went up into the woods with my kids and their spouses and all of our dogs. And I thought, well, I'm never leaving these woods. Uh, Life sucks. I don't know who I am without him. I can't imagine another life. And the world was kind of feeling very fragile at that time. And it was dark. And then I I was kind of walking around the woods with my dogs all the time and kind of figuring out who I was. And I didn't, I was, look, grief is crazy. Grief has no linear aspects to it. It's, you just sort of bump along with it. And then the world started to come back and my kids left the woods. And then I was in the woods alone with my dogs to the point where the dogs were like, please don't make us walk anymore. I mean, I was like wearing everybody out with the walking in the woods. I didn't know what I was trying to do. I was trying to work it through. And around that time, the Today Show asked me to come back. I had been on the Today Show for many years at that point. And I went back and I loved being in the studio and I loved being on air. And I had this gigantic eureka, which was, oh my God, actually, the cure is not walking in the woods. The cure is working. And I
Hmm.
need to get my stuff together and I need to get back to work because this walking in the woods is making me sadder and sadder. But I didn't think I wanted to go back to TV full time. I had this burning desire to create something. And I knew what I wanted to create, which was a class about how to figure out what to do with your life. Because I had been building this methodology for years and years as a business journalist, as a careers reporter. I had two shows on CNBC. One was called Get to Work with Suzy Welch, and the other was called Suzy Welch Fix My Life. And I had been building this methodology. And I described, one night my kids did come to see me, and I described this methodology to my kids. And I said, what do you think about me taking this to NYU to suggest it would be maybe a class in the business school? Because when I was in business school, I would have loved a class that helped me figure out what to do with my life. And my kids were like, go do it, Mom. And I said, I don't know what to call it. And my oldest son, who was 32 at the time, said to me, I think you should call it Becoming You. So I put together some stuff, Becoming You, here's this methodology. And I went to the dean's office at NYU. And I knew him from my previous life because you're a business journalist, career journalist, you meet the dean of NYU. I went to go see him and I suggested, and he said, well, we have nothing like this. And I said, I know, that's why I'm here. And he said, well, have you ever taught anything before? And I said, no, but I'm a writer and I've been on TV a lot. And he said, well, let's try a small experiment. And that is how it began as a very, they put it in the course catalog. I think they just braced themselves. They thought maybe they'd let 20 students take it. And he called me back about 2 weeks later. It was sort of, if you build it, they will come. He called me back 2 weeks later. He said, how do you feel about teaching this to 40 students? And then it was 80 students. And then there was a wait list for 800 students. And so we had to adjust. And I was like, look, just to fast forward, the class met students where they were. It ended up, my hunch was right. People needed it. I was able to teach, apparently. I remember many days walking into that classroom thinking to myself, what made me think I could do this? But I said to the students, please give me some grace. I'm learning this along with you. Thank you for being my beta testers. They were awesome. And, within a semester, the dean called and he said, we have some ideas about this class and its importance here because we are seeing a response that we have not seen before. It was very humbling. And they asked me to join the faculty full time. I gratefully accepted, but literally sobbing from joy and relief. I thought this was the thing that was waiting for me. And so I now teach Becoming You in mega sections. But I would say that I also teach a class in management because when you're a full professor, they don't let you just get off teaching your favorite class. You teach other good things and hard things. So pretty soon, though, and I'm going to stop talking because I've been going on for a while here, but pretty soon, it became clear that there was a need and a desire for Becoming You outside of NYU. And I went to NYU and I said, I'd kind of like to democratize this. And to their great credit, they said, you should democratize it. It shouldn't just be within the walls here. Our students get you. That's great, but let's make it possible for people around the world to take it. And we opened up the campus to people to take it from around the world and open enrollment. And then the book came along and we were off to the races.
How cool is that, from walking in the woods,
Yes.
feeling, I haven't experienced that, which you have, like feeling that feeling of loss and pain and anguish, to where you sit today.
Uh, I I can't believe it. I mean, I can't believe it. It's incredible. I wish everyone could feel this feeling of finding what you're supposed to be doing. I mean, that's why, I mean, to get very meta, that's why I want other people to feel this. I mean, I found the work that I was meant to do. And the reason I know I was meant to do it is because people keep on telling me to do more of it. And we've been able now to really scale the methodology with all these digital tools so that people could take it around the world. This is really cool when you get wake up to an email from somebody in Jakarta saying, I just did the methodology with my whole family. We want to thank you. And you're like, how does it feel? It feels surreal. It feels fantastic.
That's pretty cool. Okay, let's get into it.
Okay.
There's three parts: values excavation. That's part one. Then part
Yep.
two, identification of your aptitudes. That's part two.
Correct. Right. You
Part
got to be a good
three,
drummer. Yeah.
open the aperture of
Yep.
your economically viable interest. Okay, who's
Mhm.
going to pay you, right? Okay, so let's get into it. Let's start with part one. And to go much deeper, you got to read the book and actually do it. But let's just give like a high level, Suzy, and get into it so we could try to help people take action immediately following this podcast. I think that would be really, really cool.
Okay.
So part one, values excavation. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What do you
Yep.
actually do?
Okay, Ryan, what are your values?
Thoughtful, thankful, curious, and consistent.
Okay, I love you so much, but those are not values. Okay,
Why?
those are ways you want to act because that's not what a value is. Okay,
Okay.
values are choices about how we want to live, work, relate to people. I always say it's a value if it would drive who you married, what job you took, and where you went on vacation. Values, I want to get kind of nerdy and academic on you in a second. I mean,
Wait,
I've
wait.
done.
Can you share your values,
Yes, I will happily share my values, but I'm happy to. But let me tell you what values are first and open it
please?
up for you. Yeah,
Sorry. Yeah.
because it's perfectly legit to want to be those things. Those are personality traits.
Yeah.
Okay. Values are so, look, the thing that kids should learn in school are what are values and what are yours? And instead, they learn the volume of a cylinder. They learn to play the recorder. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Tragic. All right. Values are the deeply held beliefs and motivations that galvanize your actions and decisions. And I believe that there are 16 values. Now, in my academic sphere, there are two different other values inventories. One thinks there's 13 values, one thinks there are 19. I know there are 16 values. It's the Welch Bristol Values Inventory. And values are all exist on a continuum. They're like a DNA profile. You can have a lot or a little of them. Let me just explain one. Here's a value. It's a value of scope. Scope is the value that reflects how exciting a life you want. Do you want to be like Bianca Jagger on the back of a white stallion riding into Studio 54, a life of stimulation, relationships, excitement, unpredictability? Or do you want to be like living in a, sort of a twee brownstone in Brooklyn with your children in pinafores where you could tell everybody what you're doing a year from now? There's no better or worse. There's no better, there's just better or worse for you. Some people want high scope lives and some people want lower scope lives. My husband, at 11 o'clock, I'd be getting ready to go to bed, and he would look at me and say, let's go on a pub crawl. You couldn't possibly have higher scope than Jack, okay? And I have two of my children have these lives where, they want everything to be predictable and controllable. And I think that's cool. That's their scope. It's hard when a high scope person marries a low scope person, okay? But you have to work it out. So there's 16 of this. I mean, there's the value of radius. That's how much you want to change the world systemically. Okay. And some people want to blow it up and their whole lives are organized. It's the organizing principle is how much you want. And other people like, that's somebody else's job. I've got a lot of other values, a lot of other. So there are 16 values. I'd love to run them all through with you. And I'm happy to. I'll mention one other, which is kind of an interesting value. It's the value of belovedness. And this is how important an intimate relationship is to you, a romantic, intimate relationship. And it's a choice. Do you want your personal relationship with a say a spouse or a partner to be the organizing principle of your life? Yes or no? Well, it's a continuum. For some people, we just have incredible data that just came in yesterday that says basically for men over the age of 32, the value of belovedness is number one. It's much lower for women.
Really?
Yes, we have fun with data. Okay, so values are ways that we show up in the world, live, work, play, and relate, that we can decide how much or how little we want in our life. They're not virtues. Virtues are things like integrity and courage. Virtues are social constructs that we all agree everybody should have more of. All right. So I am sure that we could find out in 22 minutes what your values were because we have a test for that called the Values Bridge, which 70,000 people have now taken. I created it because we wanted to scale Becoming You as a methodology. Okay. So the first thing we have to do the Becoming You methodology is figure out what our values are. Number one, we rank order them 1 to 16, but we also tell people how much they're actually living their values because you can hold the value scope. Scope could be your number one value. It is for 14% of the population, but you could not be able to live it right now because you've got a job where you've got to be there. You've got a kid who's got, say, learning disabilities, and you can't live your scope. And so we call that number your authenticity gap. And if you've got a big one, you know it because it hurts.
Hmm.
So what we do as part of the Becoming You methodology is we give you firm data on what your values are and how much you're actually living them. This is transformative for people because they're like, usually the response is, holy, you know what? This is the self-portrait I have been afraid to talk to people about. Or had dinner with friends the other night. They took my test when it was in beta, and the husband said to me, "Suzy, you changed my life." I said, "What? Alex, what?" And he said, "Yeah, because I was on all these boards, all these nonprofit boards, and then my Values Bridge results came back, and Radius was number 16." And I thought, why am I spending all my time on these nonprofit boards when actually I'm just doing it to look good? I don't really care.
Huh.
And he changed some things around.
So it's on like a scale, right? Of these 16.
Each one of the 16 is on a scale.
Right. And so like what are your I'm dealing with this like in real time, and I know from reading the work like that this is going to be a big point of us to really go deep on because of
Yeah.
I think I have a different way of viewing values, and I think that's why I was really looking forward to this
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
So, what are your top few that you are very high in?
Okay, so I know of course, I know my values backwards
Sure.
and forward. My number one value happens to be cosmos because I'm a very faithful person. Cosmos is the value that reflects how much religion or faith is the organizing principle of your life. And so for me, Cosmos is number one. I put everything through that screen of my faith.
Okay.
And Cosmos is kind of interesting. We have so much data on it across generations, who has it high, who has it low. It's actually a barbell value. Either it's like number one, two, or three for people, or it's number 14, 15, or 16. There's not a lot of people who have it in the middle.
Yeah.
So But there's 40% of people who have that in them. My second value is radius. The value we talked about earlier. I have a deep, abiding, overwhelming desire to organize my life around helping people change how they live. I want to help people find purpose, because I have this desire to have people wage peace internally. And so I want them to find themselves and be at peace with themselves, because I don't know any other way to undo this world of acrimony. And that's my second value. My third value is work centrism, which is I love work for work's sake. We do not allow the word workaholic anywhere near becoming new methodology. We believe there's a value called work centrism. Some people love to work for work's sake, and some people just don't like work. It's
Hmm.
it's a means to an end. And I don't think that's good or bad. There's only good or bad for you. There's consequences, perhaps. If you don't like work, you may not be able to have the affluence you desire. But work centrism is a continuum. I was one time at a conference. A woman came up to me. She said, I got to talk to you. My husband's a workaholic. And I said, we don't allow that word in our world. Your husband has high work centrism. We don't judge. And she said, yeah, no, you're right. I said, he wants to organize his life around work. And she said, yeah, he'd get the company logo tattooed on his ass if he could. And he just loves work so much. It's where all his meaning is. And I said, well, I think you might have low work centrism. And she said, no, I think the problem is I have high work centrism too, but I've not been able to live it because of my children.
Mm.
I said, well, don't resent him for his high work centrism if you've got it also.
Mhm.
So that's my third top value. And then after that, I am very high on the value of achievement, which is so that's the value of having success that other people can see. I'm not going to lie, that's a value for me. My fifth value is place. Location is a value. I mean, for some people, for me, it is. I have to live in New York. I'm a New Yorker through and through. Perhaps you could notice that already, because I just live and breathe New York. But for other people, they could live anywhere. In that case, place as a value would be quite low for them.
Hmm. Okay. So can I give an example of how I came up with my values and then you can share why I'm wrong
Yeah,
or
no,
not?
it's
Or
not.
maybe
No,
I'll,
I'm not, look, I'm an academic, but I mean, I'm happy to hear. I mean, go ahead.
I think this is fun actually. This
I
is
do
again,
too.
this is why I listened to
Yeah.
you on other podcasts and stuff. Okay. So I'll just give one example. So I mentioned thoughtful, thankful, curious, and consistent. The critical behavior that aligns with my thankful value, for example, is I think you got to have behaviors to make values true, is leave it better. That's the phrase in my mind, which is leave people, places, and things better than I found them. And so then if I want to say, am I living in alignment with my thankful value? At the end of each day, I say, did I leave Suzy better than I found her? Did I leave the park better than I found it? Was there a piece of trash? I pick it up, right? Did I leave it? Did I leave it better? So to me, this is a very simple and clear and easy way to live out my value of being thankful. And one of the reasons that thankful is one of my values is I have been born into an amazing situation. Great parents, great brothers, great family now, marriage, kids, all that. And I think when you've been given a lot, you should give a lot, and that's how you show gratitude. Okay, so I'm using this
Okay.
one example
Let me
to.
let me respond.
Okay,
I love you for that.
yeah,
I think it's a very beautiful thing, my friend. That's a virtue. Everybody should be like you. Okay? Everybody should be. When everybody should do it, because the world would be better if everybody thought that way. It's a virtue. Gratitude, thankfulness, that's a virtue. And please continue to live that way. But it shouldn't be a choice. I
so
think
we're
that
we're
you're
talking
describing
about the
your,
difference between virtues and
yeah,
values, is what you're
yeah,
saying. So
right.
can you define the difference between a virtue and a
Yeah.
value?
Yes. A virtue is a generally accepted social construct or behavior that we all should have more of.
Okay,
There's no debate. No one's going to say leave the world worse than it should be. And
right.
the fact that you live by it, it's beautiful. I'm not telling you not to. Everyone should have more virtues. Okay? Society would be better. And what you listed were your virtues. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Values are choices. Okay? They're choices about how much excitement you want in your life, how family centrism is a value. Like, how central is your family as an organizing principle
But
to
wouldn't
you?
everybody say, of course, like
No.
that seems like
Oh
a
my
virtue,
God.
but
Let me show
everybody
you
would
this.
say family. Of course they do.
No,
Like,
they wouldn't. I have absolute data to tell you you're wrong. I mean,
really?
family centrism, how much family is an organizing principle of your life is not universally shared. Only 50% of people have it in their top five values.
Really?
Yes, but you make a fabulous point for me because we assume everybody else's values, don't we? You just said, Everybody has family centrism.
but
They
but
don't. It's
but part
number
of it is,
seven for me.
but you just assumed that I said thankful. You're like, well, of course, everybody should do that. Everybody should, like,
That's a
everybody.
virtue.
I know, but like we're doing the same thing here because I'm saying the same thing with family. You're saying the same thing with being thankful
No,
or
no, no,
leaving
no,
it
no,
better.
no. These are totally different definitions. They're
Okay,
totally different definitions. I don't want to nerd out too much on your poor listeners, but I would
I
say,
love this. This is
okay,
what it's
okay.
all
I
about.
would just say that look, how much you organize your life around your family is up to you because you could decide not to have children. You could
Yeah.
decide never to get married. You
Yep.
could decide, I love my family, but I want to see them 3 times a year. Okay.
Yeah.
And so family centrism is a choice. And actually, people make, like, we just have data right now about how much people are choosing to. So only 50% have family centrism in the top five. Okay. So that makes it a value where it's a choice and it exists on a continuum.
I'm kind of
And I think,
surprised you don't have that in one of your in your top five.
look, I love my children. I have four fabulous children. Sometimes I overexpressed on family centrism because I had to, but I'm a working person. I love work. When my kids were growing up, I used to say to them, I love you, but I love my work too. And I
Did you
worked.
when Jack was alive? Do you think family centrism would have been in the top five
I think for neither of us, family centrism would ever been in the top five for either of us. Belovedness, how much we valued each
with
other.
each other?
With our marriage. Our marriage was, I mean, when Jack was living, probably I had cosmos and then certainly belovedness. And I think that Jack probably had belovedness and then cosmos.
Interesting.
And I wish he had lived to take the test. But neither of us, we were often telling the kids, we're going off on vacation by ourselves. See you later. And we were very clear about it, that the marriage came first. We used to say to them all the time, the greatest gift we can give you is our happy marriage. And it
Yes.
was a great gift that we gave them. I was dancing at my son's wedding. Jack was still living then, and my son got married to his wonderful wife. And when we were dancing in that first dance, he said to me, the greatest gift you gave me and Michelle was the example of yours and Jack's marriage. So
Oh,
you live for that. But interestingly, my son, that same son, has family centrism as his number one value, and
that's
he has
cool.
achievement down at 11. So he's made a lot of decisions in his life. I think what a lot of stuff that goes on is people like, the younger generation should care more about achievement. They just don't. The number one value for Gen Z is what we call eudaimonia, and that's self-care. And the reason why we don't use self-care and we use a Greek word instead is because we don't want people's heads to blow off their body. You mentioned self-care, and all you could start a fight in the street. But 75% of Gen Z has as their top value self-care, well-being, pleasure, leisure. And that's not true for other older generations, not true of my generation, for instance.
What? Why do you think that is?
I think that the reason is that uh, kids these days look at the deal that's being offered to them by companies like, and they don't want it. They don't want to work really, really hard and then get laid off. They don't want to work really hard and then be replaced by AI. And they think, why would I chase achievement when achievement just brings you anxiety?
Hmm.
Now, I don't agree with that. I think, but I'm a different person, and my feeling is that's their right. Have that value. I don't think work centrism or achievement are virtues. I think we get to have a choice about them.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that part of it really, because like saying Gen Z is like something. I know you have some of the data to back that up, but I feel like I just met with I just did an event at Ohio University this week with a great an amazing friend and author named James Clear who wrote Atomic Habits, and we met these kids. There's 250 students there, and I think they probably picked the best of the best, but still they blew my mind
Yeah,
with how
yeah.
impressive they are. The internships, the big companies, those that maybe they just picked all the achievement valued kids in there, but it just made me feel amazing for the
Yes,
future of our country.
right.
These
I
kids, they are miles ahead of where I was just playing football in college. They were miles ahead of where I was. So I don't know, like in a way, I feel really, really optimistic about our future as a country because of kids like that.
I meet those kids too, and they're often self-selected to come meet us
Yeah.
when we go and visit places. Okay, I meit them too. I mean, many of my students, look, I'm at a fine business school, and so many of my students present this way as well. But we have 70,000 data points, and and I encounter the other kind of, the other values presentation as well. And again, I have no shade. If you want to have your top values, the top values generally for Gen Z are, I wrote about this in the Wall Street Journal the other day. The top three values for Gen Z are eudaimonia, which is self-care. The second one is voice, which is authentic self-expression. They want to be authentically self-expressing. And the third one is helping other people, non-civi, which is that they want to organize their lives. They want to have jobs where they feel like they're helping people. Now, I'd say that this is wonderful, except for that we've also have research. I mean, I think it's wonderful and power to them. Okay, they can't. You come by your values, how you come by them. You have every right to live the values that you have. If you're not hurting anybody, we did research in our labs of hiring managers, and they had to be 40 years old, managing at least 5 people. They were all in the knowledge industries, and we showed them all the definitions of the values, and we said, which ones do you want in your new hires? And the number one value was achievement. Okay, they want people who want to win. The
Mm.
number two value was scope. They want people who want to learn and grow. And the number three value was work centrism. And the overlap is 2%. So that 2%'s out there. And you met them at Ohio State, and I meet them all the time as well. But the vast majority are like, I don't want to buy this bargain. My parents bought it and it sucks. And so, but this,
But
what to do? Yeah.
those, you got to make money.
Right,
Like
right,
listen,
exactly. So there's a part of this where those may be their values right now, and after 4 years of not working, they're going to say, "Okay, it's time for me to repress my values or delay my values." That's very possibly what will happen. But they're certainly not coming out of the gate saying, "I'm ready to buy into the values that the hiring managers are looking for." I mean, they are. Goldman Sachs goes and finds those companies. J.P. Morgan finds those individuals,
yeah.
but it's not as widespread as you might think.
Okay, values excavation. We could probably talk about the rest of the time, but we're going to go to part two
Yeah.
and then part three because well, we just kind of briefly touched on part three there for a second because you got to figure out like what the world, like what you can do that the world will pay you to do. Okay, identification of your aptitudes. How does this
Mhm.
work?
Yeah, this is another thing that we don't know well enough about ourselves is what we're actually good at. We actually have 9 cognitive aptitudes. Are you a generalist or a specialist? Are you a inductive reasoner or a data processor? Are you a brainstormer or a person? Do you brainstorm ideas, or are you a person who sort of comes up with one fully baked idea a year? These are all cognitive aptitudes that are pretty preset in us by age 15. We're born with them. And we can go through life living, leaning into our aptitudes or not. And, look, if I told you right now, take out a pen, sign your name with your dominant hand, you would do it. It would feel great. You could do it all day long. Then I would say, switch the hand to your non-dominant, switch the pen to your non-dominant hand, and your signature would look terrible. And you could practice your whole life and your signature would get slightly better, or you could spend your whole life writing with your dominant hand. And aptitudes are the dominant hand of our brain. We are good at certain ways of processing information, thinking, seeing the world. Like, are you a future focuser, a person who really loves to look to the horizon, is not freaked out by it, or are you a present focuser? And it's painful to be a person who's, say, a generalist in a specialist job, or to be a present focuser in a future focuser's job. So we do a lot of testing as part of the methodology to figure out what your cognitive aptitudes are so you can build a career that leans into what you're already good at, okay, underlying. But we also take a look at another part of aptitudes, which is your personality. Because you can be very, very good at a job because of your personality, and you can be terrible at a job because of your personality. And so we look very closely at what your personality is. Now, my students often start out by thinking, oh my God, I already know what my personality is. I'm kind, I'm thoughtful, I'm compassionate, I'm a good listener, I'm loyal. And I think, well, maybe you are. But your personality is not the list of adjectives you write down about yourself. Your personality is how the world experiences you. So let's go find out how the world experiences you. And they all go through 360 feedback. We do it with a tool called Pi 360, which is a very fast. It takes 5 minutes. You give it to 30, 20 to 40 people, and they anonymously gets aggregated, and people tell you how the world experiences you. And it's a very interesting experience for students to find out how they're actually experienced. And we only measure three things. How are you with people? What's the quality of your relationships with people? What is the quality of your ideas and thinking? And what's the quality of your execution? Do you get things done? And really, that's about trustworthiness and reliability. And they get a report card. And then they're given a final number, which usually blows their minds, which is about self-awareness because they've rated themselves as well. And when we compare what the world says about them and how they've rated themselves, and they get a score, and everybody thinks they're going to get 100% on self-awareness, and that is not the case. So that's how we come about aptitudes. We take a good hard look at your cognitive aptitudes, and we do that with testing, and then we look at your personality, and we also do the Enneagram,
Yep.
which is a personality type indicator. We're currently working on a version of that test that's more accurate because it has a little bit of accuracy problems. It's a wonderful test, but it has to be facilitated. But we're hoping to get a more efficacious version of that out there on the market pretty soon.
Okay, let's go into yours. What did it when you did this work on yourself for part
Mm.
two? What popped up?
Well, I mean, I think I'm old, so I already knew my aptitudes. I'm a future focuser. I'm an inductive reasoner. I'm a sequential thinker. One of the wonderful things to see confirmed was that there's a scale that measures whether or not you're a 3D visualizer, whether you can move objects in space. It's a very good thing if you're in product, if you're an architect, a designer. And I am so bad at that. I'm all the way at the end as an abstract thinker. My dad was an architect and my mom was an artist. They both were incredible 3D visualizers. And they were always like, what's wrong with Suzy? And the fact was, like, I was way over there reading Camus and they were like designing sailboats. And it's very interesting. So it was fun and confirming to understand why I got a D minus in architecture when I tried to take that in high school. I think that with Enneagram, I'm a classic achiever. I'm a achiever. I'm a three wing two, an achiever with helper tendencies, meaning I like to help people a lot, but I'm also very achievement oriented. And then when it comes to how the world experiences me, I always go through it with my students. I think that I've learned a lot about myself, but the wisdom, there's one thing about being older is that the world pretty much eventually tells you how it's experiencing you. So my self-awareness score was quite high. Thank God.
What
Uh,
so who, but who do you send the three six? It's got to be beyond students, right? Like you
oh
said,
yeah,
your
no, I mean,
friends,
you can,
family. Like who do you send it to? And I'm curious what you learned or confirmed
yeah,
from here because like I want to do this more now. I love 360s. I've done them
yeah.
for myself. I've done them for others.
Oh,
I
let us
love
get you
them.
some Pi 360. We'll get you a copy of it because
Oh,
it is
I'm in.
it's
I'm in.
it's online. You
So
can get it
what
there,
did
but
you
I'll send
learn?
you
Like
it.
what did you get
Okay,
back?
so
Or
look,
and actually, I'd rather learn what did you get back that was surprising.
okay, I want to say that what I got back was that I was not good enough at telling people and showing people that uh, Um, let me put it this way. I thought that my life is a bit of a hurricane. I'm building a company. I am a very high scope person. I have tons of things going on. And I always thought, well, people understand that I'm kind of a walking hurricane, but they understand I'm the eye of the hurricane. I'm the calm at the center of it. And the world said back to me, baby, you are the hurricane. And so I've had to downgrade myself to a tropical storm. And so what I learned to do is when it's a hurricaney kind of day, I like literally turn to the people I'm with and I say things like, I got this. I'm enjoying this. I understand it looks chaotic. I am in control. I had to communicate better that I knew that there were a lot of plates up in the air and I was going to be able to catch them all. And I typically can. But I had to become better at explaining what was inside my brain. And it was enormously helpful feedback to me.
Hmm.
People were experiencing me as too chaotic, and I had to explain that. And I had to stop acting as chaotic. I had to just calm it down. I was freaking people out.
You we've been talking about self-awareness. Tasha Urich, maybe you've done work with her. She's written multiple books on self-awareness. She's been on this podcast a few times, basically cited the same stats that you're citing that everybody in the world thinks they have extremely high levels of self-awareness and yet almost nobody does. What are some tools? The 360 is definitely a good one. What are some additional tools or different additional ways people can become more self-aware?
I think that I've tried everything, and I think the only answer is a tool. No one is ever
Mm-hmm.
going to tell you. I have to tell you a quick story. When I started my career, I was a crime reporter in Miami. And I drove all day long from police station to police station. In those days, nothing was automated, and I found out what was going on in each community in Miami. And a fabulous young lieutenant named Joe Lodato took me under his wing, and he said, "I kind of like you, Suzy, because most of the crime reporters, they hate the police, and you'll give us a break or you'll listen to us. But there's a problem with you. You like the criminals too much, and you always think that they've got a backstory, and you want me to feel sorry for the criminals." And I said, "Oh, well, blah blah blah," and I kind of made my case. Well, a few weeks later, there was a guy who was about to go on trial for attempted murder. And Lieutenant Lodato said to me, "Why don't you come to meet him before his trial because you're going to be covering the trial?" And it was a case where he had tried to kill his girlfriend and her daughter. And so I went and I talked to him in the courthouse and by the in the jailhouse. And by the time I was done talking to him, I was like sobbing. And I came outside and I said to Joe Lodato, This guy's been framed. What a terrible case. I hope he gets off. I can't wait to cover this trial. What a sad case. Okay, then we go to trial. The guy is so guilty. It's unbelievable. He and and I after he was they literally had fingerprints, DNA, everything. And after it was all over, I said to Joe Lodato, "Why in the world did you do this to me? Like, why'd you make a fool of me this way?" And he said, "You needed to understand something that I hope you remember for the rest of your life. And it's this: everyone writes the story of their life with themselves at the center as the hero." Okay, so no matter what story we're telling ourselves, we always tell it with ourselves as the hero.
Mhm.
And so, anyway, very sadly, he went on to lose his life in the line of duty, which is a great tragedy. But I will take him forward to everybody with this line that everyone right. He told this to me. Everyone writes the story of their lives with themselves at the center as the hero. And I think that one way we can you know, try to be more self-aware is to understand that when we are telling the story of everything, we are making ourselves the hero, and we have to beware. We have to beware. But that's hard. So short of that, I like testing.
Got to have the people in your life who are truth tellers. Using tests could be helpful, right? But I agree with you. I just feel like you got to have truth tellers in your life, people that are willing to give you feedback.
But you know what? Nobody wants to be a truth teller. I mean, I think that
Sure, they do.
because you do the
Why would you not want to
because
be a truth teller?
okay, because you do the calculus in your head. I'm going to tell my daughter that she's too sarcastic with her friends, and you do the calculus in your head. She's going to be mad at me for 3 days. She's not going to hear me. Her birthday party's going to. So I think that, yeah, everybody wants to be a truth teller, but every single time we're about to tell something very hard to someone we love, we do the calculus about the blowback. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, when we're our best selves, we do tell the truth and we are the truth tellers. But it's one of the hardest things we do as human beings is to tell, as Kim Scott, to practice radical candor.
Hmm.
She's got her beautiful construct. I teach it to my students. I think 10% of the population practices radical candor, where you care personally and challenge directly. We just care personally and we keep the challenging directly to ourselves. Everybody can be better at it. So you're right. We've got to have truth tellers around us, but even the truth tellers will err on the side of love.
What do you do for your friends? Let's kids are another animal. Like I'm with you. It is so tough, but it's also like you got to figure out a way. And every kid's different. Every personality is
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
What about with your close friends and you notice something that is not quote good? Like what do
Yeah.
you do?
I am not great at this. I'm not.
Really?
I mean, no,
You
I'm,
seem
I'm,
pretty like I like being
yeah.
able to banter with you. It's
Yeah.
fun. And because like you know your stuff. I wouldn't do this with somebody who didn't know what they were talking
Yeah, no, I
about.
mean, thank you. Thank you. I mean, I wish I was better at it. I mean,
Uh,
I think that I have said I I err on the side of empathy. I think that I know so much about my friends. I think, her marriage is struggling. Her
hmm.
kid's an addict, which happens. And I think I can't, I try to tell the truth but I try to do it in a way that they can hear. Could be better at it. I mean, there's definitely times where I've had friends say to me, "Thank you, I needed you to say that to me." And actually, one thing that happens when you're kind of a practitioner of radical candor, which I very much am at work and with my students, and probably over index on it with my kids much more than any other mother that I know. A lot of times friends will come to me and say, "Suzy, I think I can count on you to tell me the truth. What is it?" And in those situations, I'm quite direct.
Hmm.
And so, but I try to speak truth in love. I mean, I want them to understand this is coming from a place of constructive love. But I feel sad that I still have a friendship that I lost years ago because I could not practice radical candor. I don't know why I couldn't do it. I see this person intermittently, and I think it's too late now, to tell the truth. But it's on my list of things to do.
You did not tell the truth.
No.
What do you mean?
Well, I thought that she had done something wrong in regards to something at work. I want to be kind of vague about it.
Sure.
She had done something at work that I thought was lacking in integrity. I didn't know all the details, and that's why I didn't go for it completely. But I suspected she had cheated at work in a certain way.
Mm.
And I suspected it. And instead of confronting it directly, I just slowly but surely backed off from her. And it was so awkward. It was like I didn't have the full facts. And I think she had just had a baby. And she had actually, here's the even layer on top of it. She had lost a baby and then
Mm.
had a baby. me. And I just couldn't do it. I mean, I thought, what if I'm wrong? This woman has been through too much.
Yeah.
And so it kind of stunk.
Suzy, isn't life really, really messy?
Yeah, messy
You know
asphalt.
what I'm saying? Like you think it's black and white, it is just not. It's
Yeah.
not. That's one of the things. So 650 plus of these conversations, 11 years. One of the things I've learned is to be much more reasonable, to be much less judgmental and much more curious. To quote Ted Lasso, that is when you talk to a lot of people and you try to have these in-depth conversations where you can go anywhere and ask anything. When you get a microphone, you're allowed just to say it and ask anything. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But what you learn is like people and their stories, they're tough and they're
Yeah.
messy and there's a lot of nuance to them. So when anyone
Yeah.
has like these hard and fast black and white things, I'm like, that's not life, man. Like
That's
that's
right.
not how it goes.
100% agree with you. I mean, I think one of the reasons I like two thoughts. One is the reasons why I like the values bridge is it allows us to have very difficult conversations in a nuanced way.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about work. There is no black or white. There's a continuum for how much it matters to you. No shade. It's not wrong or right. It's wrong or right for you. Family centrism, how much you want to organize your life around your family. That's a choice. It has consequences. Where are you on it? Let's talk about it in a reasonable way. But there are so many shades of gray, and being more reasonable when we talk to people, oh my God, to bring the temperature down, what a great thing that would be.
Let's go to part three.
Yeah,
Open the aperture on your economically viable interests.
yeah.
Essentially, what can you do that people will pay you for?
A little bit more than that, though. It's the work that calls you intellectually and emotionally that matches your value of affluence. So one of the things we test for in the values bridge is how important money is to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because people say, money, everybody lies to themselves about how much money matters. That's why we test for it behaviorally. And you find out where affluence is. I mean, sometimes I get people who they get back their values bridge results, and their number one value is self-care, eudaimonia, and their second value is affluence. And then they say to me, is this going to be a problem? And I said, do you promise not to kill the messenger? Because, it's there, these things can be in conflict. So we test how much money matters to you. You would think it would be in the top five for everybody, and it's really not. I mean, 15% of people have affluence as a very peripheral value. They just don't care
Hmm.
about their whether. All right. And then there's the vast majority have it as sort of a moderate value between 4 and 7. And then there's 34% who have it as a top value. The trick is, or not the trick, but the strategy is to find work that both calls you emotionally and or intellectually, but also is aligned with your value of affluence. And depending on how much you care about affluence, the circle of opportunity is bigger or smaller. If affluence is your top value, then you've got to look at all the work that calls you intellectually and emotionally. There may only be one job that also pays in that category. So the reason why we use the term open the aperture is that a lot of people get onto a conveyor belt of what they're going to do with their career. And when there's great research that shows that when kids come out of high school, they only know about 5 jobs, two of which are their parents. I mean, they really can't list a lot of jobs. They're busy learning the recorder and about ancient Egyptian history, but nobody's telling them, guess what? There's 135 industries. And there are literally thousands of different types of work. Let us tell you the difference between logistics and HR. Let's tell you what a mediator is. Let's talk to you about all the different types of jobs that there are. Nope, nope, they're busy learning about Egyptian hieroglyphics. So, not that I, resent having done that homework with my children 4 times, but whatever. I think that we have to open the aperture because there is so much more work that people could know about. So then you go to college. You'd think that, okay, oh, now they're going to know a lot about it, lots of different jobs. Nope, it goes only up to 7. And by the time people are in graduate school, they're really just thinking about 2 or 3 options. They are like my MBAs, it's banking, consulting, or tech, right? They don't even think about aviation, shipbuild, all the things. I mean, there's so many industries and types of work. And there's 12 megatrends right now. I mean, at different times, there's different identified megatrends. People don't even think about megatrends. Maybe 0.00001% of the population think, oh, like right now, one of the identified megatrends is space mining. Okay, you could learn everything. I'm going to get into space mining right now, but nobody's talking about it unless you're deeply curious in that way. So there's two things that we do in this part of the methodology. One is we play a game called Opportunity Bingo, where we literally force people to learn about the 135 industries and different types of jobs that exist. And then I actually teach the mega trends because I feel like they're not going to find them out themselves. And so we go through that process. But the facts are that your your currency is your currency. How much you know about how big and wide and deep the world is, the more you give yourself opportunity. And so that's a discipline that's on you. I mean, I can teach it and Becoming You tries to teach it, but at the end of the day, if you just say, well, the only kind of job I could get is X, you have not opened your aperture enough. There's
Mhm.
just, I mean, and even with my MBAs who are really kind of savvier than, about the world of work than most, even they're like, oh yeah, it didn't dawn on me I could do X. And I was like, yeah, well, go for it. I mean, I use this example of uh, nut tree farming, which is an incredibly fast growing industry that cannot find people. And they have a need for managers, they have a need for logistics, they have a need for communications, they have a need for everything, and they cannot find people. That's one of the fastest growing industries in the world right now.
Hmm. Wow, that's fascinating. I appreciate how much deeper it is than because sometimes I think about like I get people who you probably get similar types people who say like I want to host a podcast and get keynote speeches and write books like they want to do this type of thing, the type of stuff that I do, some of the stuff that you do. And one of the questions I'm like I ask beyond like why do you want to do it and all that we go deep there is though are people willing to pay you money to do it?
Right,
Like because if
right,
they're not then yeah, you're right, it's a hobby and so
right.
but if you want to make it a business like the market doesn't lie.
That's right.
Are they
That's right.
are they willing
Look,
to pay you or not? And if they're not
well,
then
but if affluence doesn't matter to them, I think
well
the
I mean
question,
but they do got to live, they got to if they have a wife and kids and cars and houses and weddings in college like that's real. So if they're not willing to give you anything for that, then it's a
right,
hobby and it's great and you should do it and maybe do it on the side and maybe it builds up, but it
right.
can't be a real business or a thing unless it's economically viable.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so, but I mean, I think that some people go, I mean, look, I get the same thing all the time. People saying, I want to do exactly what you're doing. And
Right.
there's a lot of questions to ask. And if they've got a lot of infrastructure around them, as you've just described, they're affluent, how much you can have a lot of infrastructure around you and still live very modestly. Or you could say, look, I want to send all my kids to private colleges. And that has to be part of the conversation, how much money you actually want. Nobody likes to answer that question. And I always say to my students, like, okay, you got to have you only have to tell one person the answer to this question, and that's you, but you better get an answer. And that's what's the dollar figure?
Yeah.
What's the number you want?
It's real.
Don't dance around it. You
I,
got to tell yourself that number.
I want to just ask before we run a leadership question. Suzy, you've been around some of the greatest leaders in the world. Um, you are a productive achiever as a leader as well. You've done amazing things, written best-selling books. When you think about excellence and from a leadership perspective, what have you found to be some of the commonalities among leaders who have sustained excellence over an extended period of time?
Um, they're not doing it for the money.
Really?
I've never met a great leader who was doing it for the money. Uh, and I have been very blessed to know many of the greatest leaders, and they're doing it for the love of the people, the love of excitement, the love of work, uh, the love of impact. But I've never met a leader who was doing it for the money. That's
who
for
who
you.
in your mind are like an example or two when I say the word or the phrase excellent leader, who are the first couple of people that pop into your mind?
I think Jensen Huang is. I
Yeah.
do. I think he's a great leader because he's so clear. He says, here's our mission, here's our strategy, here's our goals, here's our culture. And the whole thing is very cohesive. He doesn't try to make everyone happy all at the same time. He's absolutely clear about what they're going to do. They're going to invent the future. They're going to do it with a bunch of true believers. If you buy in, you don't get laid off. And he's clear on what excellence looks like. He's fully invested in it. He never was doing it for the money. I mean, he stayed the course year after year because he believed they were doing something. So I think he's great. I think actually, he gets bad rap these days because of some stuff going on. But I think Jeff Bezos was a great leader. Again, clarity, vision, and and excellence in everything, just absolute excellence in everything. No shortcuts. No, I mean, I one time was moderating him on a panel, and I said, "Are you looking for?" We were talking about decision making, and he said, "Well," I said, "What are you looking for in decision making?" He said, "I just want everyone around me to be right. I don't want them to be right. I want them to be right." And I just think like his clarity and his vision was incredible, is still is incredible, but he's not running it day to day anymore. So.
Yeah, Jensen seems like he gets after it though. Like, talk about that dude. Seems to have a work centric focus.
Oh, he's a look. I use him as an example of work centrism because there's a great quote of him saying, "I go to movies and I don't remember what they're about because I'm thinking about work."
Yeah.
It just blew my mind because I couldn't sit through a movie with Jack. And Jack would look
Really?
at the title of any good movie and he'd say, "I'm bored," because he'd be thinking about work. I mean, Jack and I left our honeymoon after 3 days because we were so bored and wanted to get back to work.
Are you serious?
Yeah. We're laying on the beach in Barbados and we were reading
Both of
both.
you? Both of
Yes.
you felt that way?
Oh, completely. I mean, we were the same person. And he looked over at me and I looked over at him and he goes, "Are you bored?" I said, "I'm so bored." And we went home.
Why don't you like go
And
hiking or something that's more fun than just laying down on a beach?
well, we weren't, that would have been even more boring to us. We wanted to go back to work. We were building something
I
and
think
we
it's
loved,
cool though, like when you realize that, like,
yeah,
hey, like, why are we fooling ourselves here?
right,
Let's
right.
go.
Yeah, we did. We were very clear about everything. And because our values were so identical, it was very easy. My daughter just got married, but before she got married, she and her husband took the values bridge and they said, "Oh, come on, mom, come talk to us about our values." So the tool has a function where if you both opt in, it puts your values next to each other and it compares whether your values are similar or different and where the conflicts might be. And as I was walking towards them to see what their values were, and remember that their wedding was scheduled at this point, I was walking towards them, and as I walked through them, I was like, literally, "Please God, please God." And then my daughter said to me, "Is it normal when two people have the exact same top six values?" And I was like, "Thank you, God." They were number one through six were the exact same values. They got married last week. No mother was happier than I was because I know that look, life will, they'll have their ups and downs like any other marriage, but to have the exact same values is a very good thing. So,
Mm. Wow. One more. We'll get the links to take these assessments for everybody listening. But one more before we run, Suzy. You regularly are around ambitious, growth focused. I want to leave a positive dent in the world type people.
yeah.
A lot of them students, a lot of them younger. What are some general pieces of life/career advice you give to those types of people?
Okay. The number one piece of advice I'd give is that it's better to be the author of your life than the editor.
Mm.
This happens when you are ambitious and you want to make a dent. You are typically surrounded by a lot of people, and typically you're a learner and a collaborator. And then you start getting a lot of voices in your head, and you can end up being the editor of your life. And look, I have definitely been in a position where I used to say there are a lot of stakeholders in Suzy Inc., but at a certain point, you have to become the author of your life. And the way you do that is by knowing who you are. And we put that off and we put that off, but you have got to paint a self-portrait of yourself standing still so that when you start running, you know where you're going and why. And you should have editors and you should have pushback, but you got to put the pen in your hand and write that story.
So good. So good. The book that we're referencing is called Becoming You, a step-by-step journey to uncovering your unique path to achieving success. I was introduced by our mutual friend Hollis. She's the best. I don't know if you want to tell your Hollis story,
Oh,
but
yeah, this is
what?
one of the greats, is Hals Heimbeck. We were young editors together at the Harvard Business School Publishing Company. I think I met her in 1995. She's been my editor for a long time and a great and dear friend of mine. And when I first thought, okay, the values bridge as a tool has to be digitized and I have to scale this tool so that other people can find out what their values are. I drew it on a yellow pad and I got in a cab and I went way downtown to her office and I went up to her cubicle and I showed it to her. Her voice was the most important thing. And she said, "You've got something here, Suzy." And it was it was the vote of confidence that I needed to go forward.
So good. Suzy,
Yep.
thank you so much for being here. And I would love to continue our dialogue as we both progress.
I'd love that too.
Thank you so much.